Final seconds of the game, a chance to score, and the chance has gone begging. If your business's commerce platform keeps missing the target on golden opportunities, get the MVP you deserve. Get Shopify. Shopify is the commerce platform revolutionizing millions of businesses worldwide. Whether you're a garage entrepreneur or IPO ready, Shopify is the only tool that you need to start, run, and grow your business without the struggle. Shopify puts you in control of every sales channel. So whether you're selling signed football boots from Shopify's in-person POS system, or you're vending vintage shirts on Shopify's all-in-one e-commerce platform, you are covered. And once you've reached your audience, Shopify has the internet's best converting checkout to help you turn them from browsers to buyers. What I love about Shopify is how, no matter how big you want to grow, Shopify gives you everything you need to take control and take your business to the next level. Shopify powers 10% of all e-commerce in the US. And Shopify is truly a global force, powering Allbirds, Rothy's, and Brooklinen, and millions of other entrepreneurs of every size across over 170 countries. Plus, Shopify's award-winning help is there to support your success every step of the way. This is Possibility, powered by Shopify. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/ranks, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/ranks to take your business to the next level today. That's shopify.com/ranks.
Hello, this is international football commentator Derek Ray, and you're listening to the Ranks FC podcast.
Hello, Rank Squad, and welcome to Ranks FC. It's your favourite football podcast, back for another week and back doing the basics. This is an old school episode of Ranks FC. Recently, when we asked people what they wanted to see from these rankings, they asked for us dialing in a little bit, more specific rankings rather than necessarily talking in a bit more of a broad sense. So we thought we'd bring that to you this week. My name is Jack Collins and I'll be your host today. And joining me is my co-host, our transfer guru, Mr. Dean Jones. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm very good, mate. Happy birthday, Jack.
Thank you very much.
It's the big day. You had an exciting morning, mate.
I've had a very peaceful morning, actually. It's been just very, very quiet. It's weird having a birthday in the middle of the week, isn't it? Because you're like, oh, do I do it weekend before? Do I celebrate weekend after? It's all a bit all over the place.
You have a few beers at the
Glad
weekend,
to be here
did you?
with you. I had a few beers at the weekend. I enjoyed myself. A good weekend. Fulham won. Ireland Rugby won. Can't ask for much more than that, really, can you?
There you go. Jack's won. Jack is winning.
And Fiorentina won and Betis won. It was a perfect weekend in so many different ways.
Wow. Well done, mate. You've made it through another year. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Stayed above ground. That's the most important thing in this life that we live.
We're still going. We're still cooking. But thank you. I appreciate it. Today we're going to be talking about central midfielders and going to be ranking the best in the business. Now, This is an almost impossible task because there are plenty of different types of central midfielders. There are defensive midfielders, there are attacking midfielders, there are just straight central midfielders, there are wingers that sometimes play inside, there are centre-backs that can step up. It's been a bit complicated. We're going to break it into three to try and keep it as sort of on path as possible. Defensive midfielders, attacking midfielders, and just sort of all-round central midfielders. The person would have CM in front of their name. They're not all that many of them anymore, although there's a lot of people that sort of fit into both boxes. So we hope you enjoy this episode, and we hope that you're not too mad. I can't imagine that it's going to please everybody. There's no right answer here. Everyone's going to have different opinions on this one, but we're going to do our best to at least make it an interesting debate.
I imagine a few listeners right now have got a little grin on their face because they know that we're going to run into some problems, not just with the listeners, but with each other, because we've broken it up a little bit. I'm going to do the attacking mids, you're going to do the defensive mids, and then we're going to attempt the central mids together and see if we can come to some conclusions along the way. So there's going to be some chaos along the way here, which might be a few arguments, which doesn't happen that often anymore here on Ranks, but I think it'll be fun. I think it'll be good. So yeah, attacking mids, an exciting segment, sure, also quite tricky. Now, as soon as I we started putting this together yesterday, the idea and stuff, and deciding what we were definitely going to do today. We talked about me doing the attacking mids. I was like, okay, straight at the front of my mind was Bellingham. I was like, okay, where am I going to put him? How am I going to judge him? And then this morning we began messaging, and you almost straight off the bat were like, well, Bellingham's a centre midfielder, not an attacking midfielder. And I was like, is he? I don't know, because he plays attacking midfield pretty much every week now. And I don't know if that's right, but because it's your birthday, I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt.
I think you have to look at it over slightly longer of a period, right? And this is where I've got to. It's not perfect as a system, but I do think that whilst he's playing in an attacking midfield role now, it's kind of just sort of necessity. And part of it is that obviously he's incredibly good at it, and we can look at the returns and all of that. And I think if you came back in 2 years' time and he'd done this for another year at Real Madrid, then maybe this is the point you go, okay, you shifted. But Kevin De Bruyne has played as a central midfielder for most of this season. He's played a bit deeper. He's played alongside Rodri at times, sort of quarterbacking it from a bit of a deeper role. Yes, he still moves forward, but on paper, he's actually playing as part of the two. And yet it would be disingenuous, I think, to put Kevin De Bruyne as a central midfielder as opposed to an attacking midfielder.
He'll be in the defensive midsection, Kevin De Bruyne. Of
Next year he might be,
yeah. Look, eradicating Bellingham from this discussion did make my life a little bit easier. So that was one benefit I've had here. Obviously had a long list that I've had to whittle down. We're going to get down to a top three. My long list initially included the likes of, James Maddison, like he deserves to at least be thought of initially. Like he was there. Not going to make the top three. Phil Foden, I don't know what position Phil Foden plays, but I figure attacking midfielder probably best. So he came into the thinking. Again, another player impossible to pigeonhole is Kai Havertz, actually having a very significant say on Arsenal's season in terms of his role. But I find it hard to call him an attacking midfielder because I just call him more like a support forward. I don't know, support striker. It's just like a forward. People, right? Yeah.
He's at 8.5. There's a brilliant article on The Athletic at the moment about the rise of the 8.5, somewhere between, we used to have 9.5s who played between centre forward and the old number 10 role. Now we have attacking midfielders or central midfielders bursting into those spaces and making things happen. It's like the birth of the 8.5. I was like, wow, we really are starting to put people in. And also it's hard, right? And look, Harry Brooks, our old friend, head coach Harry Brooks of this parish, would say that it's impossible to define players into a position and stop doing it. But in order to try and put people into some sort of natural ranking here, I think it's important that we try at the very least to put some people into a broad category.
Yeah, we'll get Harry on soon actually, and he can give us our thoughts on the rankings that we came up with here because I'd love to hear his views on it. Look, Paqueta's even come into my thinking here because of the influence that he's had across this season, and I think what he's going to grow into beyond here. But I do think there's a tier above those sorts of players, and other players that didn't quite make the mix for me include Bruno Fernandes, who you still see when he plays for Portugal is actually one of the best attacking midfielders in the game. But at Man United, we don't see that version of him all the time. We do a little bit. Like now that United have got, or when they have, the Rashford, Højlund, Garnacho trio in front of him, I feel like you see more of the Bruno that can exist. But as soon as that falls away, one of them is missing, like Højlund at the weekend, and they start moving things around. Yes, Bruno still had an influence on the game against Fulham and helped get them back into the game for a brief period, but
there's no consistency of performance at club level, I think. And that means that he definitely falls outside of the top tier here as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, exactly that. And then two that I'd say are unlucky not to make it for me in the top three, Florian Wirtz and Bernardo Silva. So let's get into it. At number 3 is Jamal Musiala. Obviously, his position is not black and white. We've seen him plenty of times on the wings. But his favourite position is attacking midfield, and that's where I like him too. To be honest, even when he does play wide, he drifts inside anyway, because that's where he likes to be positioned. He likes having the game opening up in front of him from a central position He can go left, he can go right, he can thread balls, whatever he likes to do from there. He's very fast. He says scoring is not natural to him, but getting in goal-scoring positions and decisive positions definitely is natural to him. It's unbelievable how this guy can find little gaps and pockets of space to exploit. It's really impressive how he can do that. Now, the thing with Musiala, you just want the guy on the ball. Like, you just want to find him in those little gaps that he manages to pick up. He threads passes through beautifully. He's got back heels for days. He's lovely at just finding these little touches that open up spaces for somebody else running through on goal. His dribbling is pretty exquisite. His vision is 20/20. This season has obviously been a bit more difficult for him because of Bayern's drop-off, and he's had a few muscular niggles. So he's got 11 goal contributions this season, and that's quite a way off the 32 from last season. But because of these factors that you have to weigh in, I don't want it to be too heavy on how he's perceived personally. He's 21. He's a go-to player at Bayern Munich still, and he'll continue to be that guy. He's had a great upbringing in the game through Germany and English football. And yeah, I think but for the limitations he's experienced this season, he would probably be 2 on this list. On a personal level, I think he's about as good as you can be at his age and his stage. But for right here, right now, Jamal Musiala sits for me at number 3.
Okay. All right. We'll have a debate once you've done your top 3. So I'll let you finish it off.
That's cool. At number 2 is Martin Odegaard. I rate him as the best player in the Premier League at the moment. And to be honest, he wasn't far off being that last season either. He was Arsenal's best player for most of the past year. And because Arsenal are so dominant in their play under Mikel Arteta most of the time, one of the beauties for Odegaard is he rarely has to worry about his defensive duties. He also doesn't have to worry about going wide and taking people on. Odegaard really is a luxury player and a bit of an old-fashioned attacking mid that is allowed to do pretty much what he wants. And Arteta trusts him to do that because fortunately for Arsenal, he has a level of self-discipline that means even when he floats around, he makes sure that he's not doing that to the detriment of the team and just wandering forward into spaces looking for some personal glory and then leaving some huge gaps that teams can find on the counter. This is a player that has been hyped for years, made his senior debut at 15, thankfully is living up to his potential. Odegaard, man, he can open up any defence. He makes Arsenal tick. He's created more chances from open play than any other player in Europe's top 5 leagues this season. He also tops the Premier League charts for the most through balls attempted this season and has more completed passes into the penalty area than any player across this season. He's got incredible vision, incredible awareness, and he's got a clinical edge to him. He's got 8 goals and 7 assists so far this season. He's the Arsenal captain. There's a chance he might even lift the trophy at the end of this Premier League season. He is a truly brilliant example of what an attacking midfielder should be. And obviously that's one of the big reasons that Arsenal are in the title conversation right now. He's brilliant.
Yeah.
But there's a big reason he's not at number 1. Because at number 1 is Kevin De Bruyne. Now, this guy has been hampered by a hamstring injury for most of this season. We've only seen him 11 times. But when we have seen him on the pitch, we've been reminded as to why he is the master of this art. He returned to action this season against Newcastle, and he only played for 21 minutes. In those 21 minutes, he probably made more of an impact than any player could ever hope across the most of a season. He was unbelievable. 2-1 down against Newcastle. He comes on, scores an absurd equaliser with the side of his foot, and then produces an outrageous assist for Oscar Bob to go and win the game. It was absolutely brilliant. Since he arrived in the Premier League, Kevin De Bruyne has an assist every 180 minutes. That is the best return we've ever seen. He has literally created more chances than any other player to ever play in the Premier League. He heavily outscores his expected goals, probably because of his outlandish long ranges that he goes for. Only Messi has scored more goals from distance since 2015 than Kevin De Bruyne. And deeper than that, no matter what stat you look at from the past year, KDB has the best numbers, right? I was looking across at like how he compares to other players, and it is a little difficult to judge because he's missed so many matches, but still across the past year, whether it's expected assists, key passes, passes into the box, through balls, touches in the final third, crosses into the box, KDB is number one for absolutely everything across the past year. At the moment, there's talk about him potentially going to Saudi Arabia or MLS, and it's just absurd because it's too soon. Like, he might be 32, and you might be thinking, oh, yeah, we've probably seen the best of him. No, I'm not done with this guy yet. I hope we see more of him at the top level, especially now he's only just returning. It was funny because at the weekend, he actually looked a bit sluggish when he came on for Man City, and he didn't look anything like the full version of himself. But I'm not letting that cloud my judgment at all. Kevin De Bruyne is the best attacking midfielder in the game.
Yeah, I think when you come to discussions like these, sometimes the best way to think about it is if you were playing a cup final and you could pick, one player to be there, just a one-off, in a one-off game, who would that player be? And I think the answer is Kevin De Bruyne still, right? So therefore it makes perfect sense to have him at the top of this list. I don't disagree with your one or number two picks, to be honest. I think that Ødegaard's increased output, but also his increased level of responsibility since becoming a leader in this Arsenal team means that rise has been pretty much inexorable. There has been nothing that has kind of phased him across the last couple of years. And his, he feels like the natural heir to KDB in the Premier League, right? That's where we've got to with Ødegaard and what he can do. My only qualm, I think, is at number 3, where I think it's still disingenuous to have Jamal Musiala ahead of Bernardo Silva. Because when it comes to it, and you were picking a player to play in there, and say the first two were out, I would have Bernardo ahead of Jamal Musiala right now. There hasn't been a season since he broke through in that first senior season in France where he hasn't put up double figures for goals and assists across all competitions. Yes, Musiala had an absolutely incredible season last year and a campaign that, production-wise outshines anything that Bernardo's ever, I think, put together. But when you put it all into one place, I would still trust and have faith in Bernardo Silva ahead of Musiala. And you can say, look, he plays a lot on the right, but I can also suggest that Musiala plays wide through a lot of his career as well. So I don't think those two things come into question. When it came to it, he's still the player I'd have in there ahead of him. And therefore, I think I would have Bernardo Silva at 3 here behind Ødegaard and KDB.
Yeah, I mean, look, he came close, and he was the player that I considered most closely to take in that number 3 spot. It is a difficult call. Bernardo Silva has a ridiculous football IQ. You can see the influence that he is having, especially, I think, on Pep Guardiola this season. I think Pep's, I was going to say, struggling to trust his players right now. I don't know necessarily that's true, but I do feel like when you see him chatting to Bernardo, he's starting to see him as like his brains on the pitch in a way that he has done with other players in the past. He's kind of becoming like, okay, we are actually in a title crunch here, and you are the guy that's going to unlock things for us. And I totally appreciate what you're saying. Look, if we look at the stats, Phil Foden's been brilliant this season for Man City in terms of making things happen. But I agree that Bernardo is the guy you would probably look to for that real ingenuity and that real nous. And he probably is IQ-wise ahead of Musiala. But
he's older and more mature. Like
he's 8 years older.
Yeah.
He's 8 years older.
That's not a slight on Musiala to say that.
And Musiala's just magic. There's really not much between how you compare these. They're not really like for like players. Like the way that they play isn't very similar. So it's very difficult to say who you would want here at number 3, and it's probably going to be come down to personal preference on what you want to see from an attacking midfielder. And my personal preference is the twinkle toes of Musiala rather than that of Bernardo, but that is obviously ridiculous because it's not like Bernardo Silva hasn't got that.
That's fine. As you say, that's personal preference.
Yeah.
I think there's less between Musiala and Wirtz than there is between Bernardo and Musiala. That's where I'd have it. I don't think there's much between those two players in terms of where they're at, their production levels. I think you could make an argument to suggest that Wirtz is actually the most natural attacking midfielder, or at least number 10 of all of them, right? In that he actually is far more in that mold of like, wow, he gets the ball into those spaces and he's been trusted and he plays in a system that, you know, allows that as well, which is important to consider.
Yeah.
But it is just worth pointing out that he is probably the most natural central player of the three of them. And therefore, there's a fair argument that he might be in there. But equally, I have no doubt that Florian Wirtz is going to be in this conversation in years to come. So I'm okay with him being just outside for now.
Yeah, and I'm glad actually I didn't do a top 5 because it could be very difficult actually to figure out. I mean, it probably would have ended up shaping that Wirtz and Silva were the 4 and 5, but then 3, 4 and 5 would have become so fine to separate. Whereas I think 1 and 2 are set apart at the moment, like Odegaard and KDB. It didn't take me that much time really to come up with that order. Like it was a brief moment where I actually thought, is Odegaard really going to be my number 2? And I did have to consider it for a second, but I was like, why am I doubting myself here? Like Odegaard has been sensational, not just for this season, but last season as well. And actually for his entire life back to being probably a 5-year-old, because this lad has genuinely been talked about since he was a child. And we've been waiting to see if he could become the player that everybody said he would be. He's actually done it, which makes it even more impressive.
Yeah, definitely. No doubt about that whatsoever. A serious talent and very much a contender for the throne. I don't think it's going to be too long before he does actually supersede into that first place. But for now, KDB retains the crown. All right.
He's the king.
We're going to be back after the break to talk about defensive midfielders and central midfielders. Don't go anywhere.
I talk about this all the time, but I really do love coffee, Rank Squad. I've tried pretty much everything there is to offer out there, but recently I came across a new coffee experience that has blown my mind. Laird Superfood Creamers are crafted from the highest quality, all-natural, real food ingredients. I really don't think I'll be going back to anything else. My coffee journey feels complete. Are you ready to feel more energised, focused and supported? Go to lairdsuperfood.com and add nourishing plant-based foods to fuel you from sunrise to sunset. Use our promo, RANKS15, at checkout to save 15% off your purchase today. Our promo code, RANKS15, at checkout to save 15% off your purchase today.
Welcome back to Ranks FC. I'm getting used to doing this now. I think this is the 3rd week in a row I've opened up the second seg.
It's co-hosting now, mate. This is actually where we've got to.
Yeah, this is where we're at now. It's just the two of us. And got to share responsibilities, and that means you're doing more rankings, and we're all loving it. And you are going to get stuck in now to the defensive midfielders, which this is a tough job. You'd sent me your long list, and actually I'd done my own long list this morning, and it was almost identical, but I thought getting that lot down to a 3 ain't easy.
No, it's really not. It's really not. An immediate shout out for Wataru Endo after that performance at the weekend, I think needs to be in this conversation. And the man that he played against as well, Moises Caicedo, there's a lot of chat about Caicedo's price tag. We talked about this obviously on Monday's podcast. I still do think that Caicedo is doing a lot of things well. It's just that in the system that he's playing in, it's not working particularly well. He still feels a little bit reckless. He still feels a bit isolated, I think, like he's trying to do too much on his own. But the raw materials are still there for one of the best in the business. And I think that he will continue to rise up as Chelsea do improve. I also shouted out Boubacar Kamara and Douglas Luiz, who are playing this sort of joint sixes role in Unai Emery's system. Now, Luiz has got forward a little bit more. Obviously scored a glut of goals at the start of the season, but I think that both of them have been really, really important to the way that Emery has reshaped Aston Villa. Manuel Ugarte, I would have probably had higher last year, considering what he was doing at Sporting. And his replacement, Morten Hjulman, comes in here as well, but hasn't played all that much at PSG and has had to rotate his space. Martin Zubimendi is an interesting one. He's been exceptional and has the ability to rise higher, I think. In this, there's someone, as you well know, Dean, very much in demand in the summer. And then there's the man that you picked as one of the best value signings of the Premier League last year, Edson Alvarez, and Joao Palhinha, who are both incredible. I think you look at Fulham at the weekend and Marco Silva played 2 players to basically cope with the loss of Joao Palhinha. That's, I think, a testament to just how good he is. He requires 2 different players doing different things to replace him in a side. And then the last one that I've left out of my 3 with a heavy heart, because I don't know, this is going to wind people up as well, is Aurelien Tchouameni, who I think has been absolutely sensational for Real Madrid. I'm just struggling with where he fits. And there's going to be, I know as soon as these top three get read out, there's going to be all sorts of arguments. But he's the one that I'm most upset that I've left out, and the one that I'm still kicking myself and trying to rearrange to get it in there, because I think what he's done at Real Madrid under Carlo Ancelotti, the fact he's one of the first names on the team sheet, he is absolutely locked and loaded, trusted by one of the greatest managers in the game. He has lived up to the price tag. It's been remarkable what he's done, but he just falls short for me.
I love how scared you are of leaving him out.
I don't want to leave him out. It's not even scared. I'm upset with myself that he's not made the top 3, but here we are. And at 3, I've got Declan Rice, who has come into Arsenal. And look, here's another one who has lived up to the price tag, right? And there were talk of Arsenal fans saying to West Ham fans, can we pay you more? All of this, all of the above. But what he's brought to the team, the reason he's not higher is because I think Arsenal's best performances have come this season when Jorginho has played next to him and allowed Rice to get a little bit further forward and impact the game a little bit further up. And therefore, there's kind of that sense that maybe he's not the pure defensive midfielder that maybe the others are. But there is something here that you're looking at. And anyone who walks in at that kind of price point, and we just mentioned Caicedo, right, and how Chelsea fans feel about that deal. Anyone who walks in at this price point and doesn't live up to expectations gets absolutely slammed. And there was a lot of chat in the summer that Arsenal were overpaying for Declan Rice, and the fact that he's English and homegrown, all of those things come into that. But I think what he's brought to this side, and that I'm sitting here saying all of this through gritted teeth, and Declan Rice broke my heart.
And Jack is wearing an Ireland shirt as he lords up Declan Rice.
It's tough to say these words out loud, but they are where they are, and he has been as good as he has been, and therefore that props deserve to be in there, because his ability to step in here and make a difference in this Arsenal side and turn them, even closer into contenders than they were last year, I think, has been really, really impressive. At 2, the one that you're going to disagree with, I think, I've gone Hakan Çalhanoğlu, who has been revelatory in this role for Inter.
Was not expecting this.
And I think that when you see his comments this week, he was like, who is better? Who's better in the world than I am? Defensive midfield. You're like, all right, wow, that's pretty brave words. But he's got a point. And since he's come in here and kind of reinvented himself into this role, Inter have been stunning. And his performances have been so heavily consistent. He has been such a crucial part of the way that this Inter side operates. He can do almost everything from the base. He has that ability to, if he needs to, just that Jorginho-esque recycling to allow play to continue to develop and keep this Inter side on the front foot. He's been snapping into challenges. The fact that they have not missed Brozovic, a jot, is all down to how good Çalhanoğlu is. And he was missing at the weekend. There is talk that he might miss the Atleti game. That's the kind of thing that could turn a tie on its head. And I think that's a testament to how incredibly good he has been in this role. He has taken to it like a duck to water. And when you watch how good Inter are with him there and what he brings to the table, I think it's hard to argue with the fact that he said he was up there with the best in the world. I agree. I firmly agree. Which leaves the obvious number 1 in Rodri. Now, it's easy to forget now you watch Rodri every week and you understand how important he is to Manchester City. That Rodri's adaptation to the Premier League wasn't all that smooth. Now, he was brilliant at Atleti, and those of you who have been listening for a long, long time will remember that Man City were originally linked with Koke, and we sat there in the BR Football Ranks studio and we're like, what are they doing? The player they need to sign is Rodri. The player they need to sign is Rodri. And we were adamant about this. And then out of the blue, City signed Rodri. We're like, ooh, it's interesting. And then he didn't adapt. And we're like, oh no, we've made a terrible error. We hadn't made a terrible error. He just took his time to get settled in. And once he did, there was really no stopping him. It's very difficult to argue with this. There are few better in the world at doing all the aspects of what he does in defensive midfield, as we talked about a little bit with Çalhanoğlu, but I think to a higher scale, at a higher level, and more consistently over a couple of years. That ability to break up play, that ability to start attacks from the base. He can recycle possession. There's almost nothing that Rodri can't do. And then suddenly he started scoring loads of really important goals as well, just to add a little bit of spice to the position. Scoring the winner in the Champions League final is never going to hurt your cause at being top of these lists. But in terms of how important he is to City, I talked about this when we did our Ballon d'Or episode and why I had him in the top 3. There are, almost nobody that can do what he can do. And he is so, so crucial. He is the best defensive midfielder in the world by almost any measure.
Yeah, there we go. Man City have won the first 2 categories of this ranking. They
won't win the third, it'll be fine.
And they should have had another player in there too. But the Çalhanoğlu is obviously an interesting one. He's almost 30 years of age, and I haven't seen as much of Inter Milan as you have. But for a player that's tried pretty much every other midfield role there is, and been good in all of them, sometimes you do get to a stage of your career when you have a better understanding of the game, and then you drop back, and it just feels like you've found your role in life. And from, I listen to Inter podcasts regularly talking about him and how he's adapted and transformed. And they do genuinely feel like this is where he belongs. And it's just taken a bit of a journey to end up there. Now, obviously, it's difficult to compare him with Tchouaméni because Tchouaméni is 24 and
he has also played quite a lot of the season at centre-back.
Yeah, he's played a lot of the season at centre-back. He's now a centre-back.
You said it. He's in danger of being moved there permanently. Maybe that's dropped him down the ranking.
He's that good as a centre-back. He's in danger of turning into a centre-back, so maybe he shouldn't be in this ranking anyway. But Tchouaméni is one of the best. Real Madrid, France, like 2 of the toughest places to get a breakthrough. And that's the level of competition that he's consistently having to strive towards, and he does a decent job. So to be completely knocked out of the top 3, I do find harsh, but I understand the dilemma that you were faced with here, and it's bold of you to go Çalhanoğlu at 2, but I think that comes as a result of watching Inter closely, and again, people that won't agree with it won't have seen Inter probably as much. Like they're not a team that feature as heavily and on TV naturally, and that you sometimes have to go digging a little bit more to watch Çalhanoğlu. Whereas Real Madrid are going to be on TV every single week and pretty easy to find. So I do think that's part of it. Declan Rice, I found it interesting what you said about him. Maybe he's better with Jorginho next to him. Declan Rice doesn't really want to be a defensive midfielder. He wants to be a box-to-box guy. He wants to get everywhere. He wants to have more shots. He wants to have more goal threat. I'm told
I did consider throwing him into the centre midfielders category, but I think that right now it would still probably be disingenuous to do that because
I think in a year or two, I think that's what it'll be. I would talk about Zubimendi when you were doing your long list, and Zubimendi, a player that Arsenal have their eye on. Interesting that they're even contemplating something like that. You hear him linked with Onana and players like that too. I think they'll be looking for someone who's a good partner for Rice in terms of letting him off the leash just a little bit more. But Rodri is just like, again, an undoubted number 1. I mean, his absence when he's not, if Rodri was to come out of this Man City team now, they don't win the league. I think it's as simple as that. Like KDB is that influence going forward. And like, if KDB is fit for the rest of the season, then they win the league. If Rodri's missing for the rest of the season, they don't win the league. Like, that is how heavily those two players on their own swing things. And in the Premier League of all teams, which is, it is the toughest league. Like, it is, especially in a year like this when we've got a proper title race in our hands. Like, the three teams at the top of the Premier League this season are as strong as we've probably ever seen. And
I think the depth falls down. I think
the
depth drips down the most in the Premier League. That is what I would say.
Yeah, but I think that it's an interesting one. I'll be looking forward to see what comments we get in on the back of that, to see who you've missed out there. Look, Palhinha, mate. Honestly,
he's top five. He's top five.
He's top five. And honestly, again, people do not know how good João Palhinha is. Like, he is absolutely unbelievable. And I've said it 1,000 times before. I can't believe he still plays for Fulham. I genuinely can't believe he still plays for us. And I'm glad Tuchel's leaving Bayern Munich, and because I think that he was the driving force behind him going there. And I feel like the Bayern thing's falling away a bit. I hope Tuchel goes to a bang average team next who can't afford him, so that there's not
or just Barcelona who just can't afford anyone. Either
exactly.
way it works. They're not bang average, but they don't have the money. So who knows? I just wanted one last word on Çalhanoğlu before we move on to centre midfielders. And look, we'll talk about Bayern because Kimmich wasn't in that list, and it's one where I'm a little bit torn on what to do with him because Bayern don't see him as a defensive midfielder. Now, lots of people do, but there is also this kind of underlying narrative, I think, that's going on where someone like Barcelona, for example, we're talking about signing Kimmich, and there were lots of chat about Man City potentially being interested if that becomes available in the summer, what that looks like. I don't think that Barcelona, who do need a six desperately, are going to understand or allow Kimmich to thrive in a system where they would play him as a sole defensive midfielder. I could be wrong. It's Joshua Kimmich, and he has class in almost every bone. But I think that the idea that City would be signing him to play alongside Rodri as opposed to instead of him probably tells you just about where he is right now in his career. So I would have him in that centre midfielders list. But just on Çalhanoğlu and Milan letting him go and then him signing for Inter, they don't play the same way, and it's not the same kind of, probably not quite the level of quality either, but it does remind me a little bit of when Milan let Andrea Pirlo go, and then he went to Juventus and was just absolutely unbelievable for 3 years. And it was like, oh, he's probably a bit too old. He can't play the role he used to anymore. He's not, the most dynamic of number 10s. And then suddenly he's at Inter and he's just a key part of a team that are so far and away better than Milan right now. It's a bit different. I think the same thing that happened with Pirlo, where he played so little in that last season at Milan, and then he went to Juventus, and everyone was like, "Why haven't they? Why weren't they playing this guy? Like, what on earth is going on here?"
Yeah,
and that kind of renaissance is very similar to the idea of what I think we're seeing with Çalhanoğlu as well. So yeah, I just wanted to bring up that comparison before we moved on. But because there's a lot to chat about in this central midfielders segment.
Yeah,
I have a long list. You might have more. My long list includes Luka Modric, Toni Kroos, Fede Valverde, Eduardo Camavinga, Jude Bellingham, Frankie de Jong, Gavi, Pedri, Gundogan, Bruno Guimaraes, Warren Zaire-Emery, Enzo Fernandez, Alexis McAllister, Joshua Kimmich, Vitinha, Cope Miners, Barella, and Basuma. It's a long list.
It's a very long list. My long list didn't include any Premier League players. I don't believe that any of the Premier League players are up to scratch to even be considered for a top 3 spot here. So none of them made my list. Absolutely
buy into that, although I do think Bruno Guimaraes has the ability to be in this competition.
Yeah, it could be, but he ain't there. And it's incredible when you consider what we've just talked about. Obviously, Man City come out on top, but there's a fair variation there. While it might have been heavily led by Premier League influences, like there's German influence, obviously Spanish influence. You talked about the Italian side of things there as well with Çalhanoğlu. Here, I mean, it's just Spain, Spain, Spain on my list, apart from like 2 Italians. So it could easily be a top 3 of all Real Madrid players. Like,
There was
I'm that
five. There was
close.
5 in the long list. 5
And
Real
there's
Madrid players and 4 Barcelona players in my long lists.
at least 2 Real Madrid players have to be top 3 in my eyes.
I
And
have not put that in there, but I'm intrigued. So we will both do a 3-2-1 here, and we'll see where we're at. But
yeah, I don't have a 3 because I haven't separated it yet. But my 2 Real Madrid players are Valverde and Bellingham.
Yeah, but Valverde is the person most unlucky, I think, to miss out on mine. I think he would be 4, but what he can do
I'm considering him as my number 1.
Yeah, no,
like,
and I think there's so little between these lot. And this is the thing. We're talking about the very, very top of world class here, right?
And they're all a bit different, but like I saw the other day, I can't remember where, but it's stuck in my head that Valverde is basically Toni Kroos with the pace of Vinicius Jr. And I was like, I get what you're saying. Like Valverde,
It's a bit less control, but yeah.
I need to go and see Valverde live because I don't even think I can fully appreciate this player until I see him in the flesh.
People forget about him because Madrid keep buying shiny new toys, and he's just been there doing his business for such a long time. He's done so much of everything.
If there was if Real Madrid had to sell one of their gems and they sold Valverde, I feel like there could be more uproar over that than any of the others. That's how good and how well respected I think he will be right now at Madrid. His ball progression is unbelievable. As I said, he's quick. He can score an assist. He's really intelligent on the ball. He's got that long range ability to his game. He gets around box to box. And I really do feel like Valverde is completely unappreciated in the wider picture of the football world right now because he's just in the shadows of all these big names. And maybe that suits him. Maybe it's a bit like a Paul Scholes scenario from when he was at Man United, and during his actual playing days, Paul Scholes just got on with his job. Everyone knew he was a good player, but talks about Ryan Giggs and David Beckham and Roy Keane instead of him. And perhaps that's how things rub out for Valverde, and perhaps that's why he's able to excel through the coming years. But
yeah, I don't think Madridistas have the same appreciation or disappreciation of
it's the
where
same
he
with
is.
United fans probably at the time.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's fair.
But then you've got Jude Bellingham, who is one of the guys that's Valverde's having to live in the shadows of, and mate, it's just everything. Like I wanted him in the attacking midfield conversation because of the impact that he's made. But he can finish like a striker. I don't see many midfielders that can finish like a striker.
Yeah,
and that's
but also, if you had to play him in defensive midfield, I wouldn't be first. I'd be like, fair enough, he'll do a job. No doubt about it whatsoever. And that's the difference here with Bellingham. And look, there was a lot made of that shirt number being the addition of a 4, an 8, and a 10. But considering how well-rounded he is, it's very difficult to not appreciate that. It might be a bit of a bait story, but it does feel like it's the kind of thing that you're like, yeah, pretty spot on, actually.
Yeah, look, for a 20-year-old, he's so rounded. There's no doubt about that. Character-wise, he's got it all. If you think like Real Madrid, like when you lose characters like Sergio Ramos when he's gone, even Ronaldo in a sense, like that big personality on the pitch and somebody off the pitch that is not afraid to speak their mind. But Bellingham's probably not as outlandish as the guys that I've just mentioned there, but I feel like he's going to become more so as he gets older and more comfortable in his own skin and his own personality as a grade A footballer. But I think that character is going to lift him even higher. The build of him and the stature of him is immense. And yet he can glide around a pitch. Like, someone who's like 5'7" and like smaller built. Like it's unbelievable the way he can drop shoulders, the way that he can go in between people, the anticipation that he's got to see things opening up. And again, why I see him as an attacking midfielder, because you watch play opening up and it'll be over on the left side and Bellingham will slowly drift and drift, and you watch him and he can see the gap and he just floats into that space and he's finishing things all the time. Like,
so just out of interest, if we had put him in the attacking midfielders category here, where would he have gone in?
Well, he's obviously not number one, so that's out the window for him. Would he have gone above Odegaard? Yeah, he'd have probably knocked Odegaard down to the 3.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I think he would have.
I probably would have had him at 3.
Yeah, it would have been a tough call for sure. But it would have been tricky to put in Bellingham at 3, I think, given what he's done at Real Madrid so quickly as well. But so that's my 2 big takeaways there, and 2 people that I had absolutely firm in my mind that I would want in my top 3. The only, I don't know who makes it from the rest of the list. Modric and Kroos obviously are outstanding. I just don't know if right now I can include them. Kroos possibly. Modric, I don't know anymore. It's ridiculous, obviously.
He had the most off the back of the weekend where he scored a screamer to win the game.
You just feel like at the moment he's just being managed carefully so that he can still have this influence in games. So it's still stupid. And you get over to Barcelona and you've got to analyse their options.
Talking about Camavinga. It's just like, it's wild. 20 years old already, like another one just on the team sheet. It doesn't matter where he plays. Sometimes he's at left back. Sometimes he's in central midfield. He's just got to be in there somehow. And that's the mark of just how good he is.
3 Real Madrid players and people would have to put up an extremely good argument to convince you it was wrong. And that's actually one of the reasons I did tip Real Madrid for the Champions League this season, because their depth of midfield options is absolutely ludicrous.
Yeah, I mean, there is no way that I'm letting a top 3 go without having Nicolo Barella in it.
He's the only player that I've got on my list here that plays outside of La Liga, outside of Real Madrid and Barcelona. I've got literally the 5 Real Madrid players, 4 Barcelona players, and I've got Barella.
Yeah, I mean, on a long list, I have Vitinha at PSG, but I don't think he comes into this conversation at the top end yet. I think he might get there, but right now I think he's still working his way. Zaire Emery as well, another one that he's definitely on his way up and going to be into this conversation. He's on a long list, but I just will not have that Barella isn't in here. I think he is just one of the most remarkably well-rounded footballers, and I think this is the mark, right, of the centre midfielder here when we're putting them in this category. What do you have to be in this category? You have to be ridiculously well-rounded. And what Barella does, his tenacity, but also that ability going forward, his ability to get back and make big challenges, to be the man in the middle. He's the heartbeat in so many ways of this interside. If Lautaro is its soul, then Nicolo Barella is its heartbeat. And I love that he has just been so incredibly consistent since 2020, 2021, when he was, the main man as they won the title, then, showed it time and time again, just that level of quality. Real Madrid might be the only side in the world that Barella doesn't walk into. And that's because that they wouldn't spend the money, not because if he was just dropped in there, he wouldn't be able to fight for his space. And I think that his demeanor, but also he's very rarely injured. He makes things happen every time he's on a pitch. He builds these connections, that ability to drive down sort of the right-hand side and drift into different areas to link this entire interside. He's just a glorious, glorious footballer. He's another one that I just don't think gets his flowers. Barella is different gravy. I think I have him at 2.
So, where else are we going here?
Pedri.
A Barcelona player's got to make it. And it's got to be Pedri, I think.
I think the problem is that the injuries this season have potentially derailed this conversation a little bit.
And that's what makes it hard, to be honest, because what you're trying to figure out what you're judging it on. But I mean, De Bruyne still made it, and he's only played I said 10, 11 games.
Sure, but De Bruyne has had a deeper range. But look what Pedri did since he came in at Barcelona, and to walk into that side as a youngster and just be like, oh, by the way, I'm the main man, and then get squeezed like a tube of toothpaste in terms of how often he was played in every competition, and then by Spain, it was like, oh, this kid just came in and was the second coming of Iniesta. It was wild watching the way that he just took control of games and made things tick. He is just glorious to watch. And maybe the thing that counts against him here is that Xavi's system hasn't always got the best out of him, and playing him out on that left-hand side, he has struggled with it at times. Gavi dealt with that move out to the left a little bit better, I think, than Pedri did. But, his impact on the game when he came in as a teenager and then continued to provide for the next couple of years, it's just like he has, whatever the X factor is. You saw it from the moment that Pedri stepped on a pitch.
Yeah, no, it's true. But how are we going to pan this out? You're adamant Pedri's in. You're adamant Barella's in. I'm adamant that Valverde and Bellingham.
Well, we can have two separate lists here. That's okay. We're allowed to have separate 3-2-1s.
I'd rather we count with a definitive, and I just don't know what the order is. So I think that's what we have to figure out here.
I love Valverde, and I honestly adore the man. He is my favorite of the Real Madrid midfielders. But it also feels unfair to leave Bellingham out of this conversation, considering what he's put together this year, but also how important he was to Dortmund and the leadership that they lacked when he wasn't on the pitch at this age.
Yeah.
It just felt like the move suited him down to the ground, and he has walked in there and been like, my time, literally, in many ways. But it's hard to leave. It's hard to leave any of these out. Maybe do you want to do a top 5, or is that cheating?
No, it's cheating. So look, Valverde's been relegated from my top spot to number 4 as a result of that. And then you've got Bellingham, Pedri and Barella competing for a crown.
I think it's Pedri 3, Barella 2, Bellingham 1, but...
Yeah, I think it probably is that, the way that we've just spoken about it. That does seem...
If Pedri hadn't been injured this year, I think he'd be above Barella. But I think that knocks him down a peg. And just how good Inter are compared to, what Barcelona have become this season. And look, there's space for all of these to move around. But I think that's how I'd have it.
Yeah, I think there's potential for this to go viral. Make up some graphics. We'll get absolutely battered on social media for leaving out all of those other names that haven't made the top 3. And then Ranks FC's trending on X, mate. I think we'll be good after.
Be cancelled, mate. Be cancelled. Right. I think we will leave it there. Please do let us know what your thoughts are. And look, it is, at the end of the day, subjective. We'd love to know the way that you would rank these guys. It's not an easy task by any imagination. Get your pals together, get your rankings in, and get them over to us. We'd love to see them. We'll read a couple out on next week's show. Talking of that, let's go to part 3, Dean, because we've got another person looking for a new club. Can't wait to get stuck in.
I talk about this all the time, but I really do love coffee, Rank Squad. I've tried pretty much everything there is to offer out there, but recently I came across a new coffee experience that has blown my mind. Laird Superfood Creamers are crafted from the highest quality, all-natural, real food ingredients. I really don't think I'll be going back to anything else. My coffee journey feels complete. Are you ready to feel more energised, focused and supported? Go to lairdsuperfood.com and add nourishing plant-based foods to fuel you from sunrise to sunset. Use our promo, RANKS15, at checkout to save 15% off your purchase today. Our promo code, RANKS15, at checkout to save 15% off your purchase today.
Welcome back to Ranks FC. Now, for those of you that listened to last week's episode, you remember that Chris emailed in to get us to help him pick some teams. We gave him some options, and Chris replied just saying, I just listened to it. I'm beyond appreciative of you guys. You didn't have to do that. Yeah, you did. You put in some effort and research. I'm forever indebted to you and Dean. And said he was joining the Patreons. That's great to have Chris on board with the Ultras. He also told us that he's going with, drum roll please, Tottenham, Real Sociedad, Fiorentina and RB Leipzig. And he said, and
Okay.
best of all, it's the Real Sociedad play later today. I'll be tuned in for sure. And I'll be watching highlights and clips of the other teams in preparation for the weekend slate. I'm going to familiarise myself with the players. So
I knew he'd go
delighted.
RB Leipzig. I knew RB Leipzig would be a good shout for him.
It was a good shout. It was a good shout. We've now had a couple more messages on this as well. So
Yeah,
we've got
we
a
have.
couple lined up. Please do get in touch if you'd like some help, because even if you have some teams, as today's guest does, we're going to help him out in a specific circumstance. So
Yeah, Guru
with
Wisdom
that,
has taken a real new twist, yeah.
well, it's time for Guru Wisdom.
Guru Wisdom, Guru Wisdom, Guru Wisdom.
There we go. Thanks, boys. Thanks,
Yeah.
boys. Today's special guest is Aidan Obrecht, who says, hey, mates, truly loved the Guru Wisdom segment on the main show this week on picking a football club to support based on things that might interest you. And I was hoping you lads could help me to find an Italian club to support, if you don't mind, as I've started watching more Serie A recently. I'm from Philadelphia. I'm a fan of Everton, Borussia Dortmund, Celtic, and of course, the mighty Philadelphia Union. I work in electrical, so I really appreciate the blue-collar background to a club's identity. I'm not too familiar with Italian culture, let alone anything about the socio-economic status of the geography. Results aren't too important to me either. I wouldn't be an Everton fan if that were the case. I just want to support a club that respects its fan/background and fights for the badge every week. I hope this reaches you well and you see it. Thanks, lads. Appreciate the show and all the work put into it. Great stuff. Great stuff.
Great stuff.
Really
Appreciate
excited
it.
about this. Shouts out Aidan. One of our patrons
Yeah, so
messaged him.
I don't know enough about Italian politics to know about that side of which club he should support. But when he goes through those teams that he likes, there's one club that jumped out at me straight away that I just see as the Italian version of supporting all of those three. I don't know why, really, but there is an attachment, I feel, to AC Milan when you consider those clubs, the ups and downs, the history, some of the players they've had in the past and traditions. I just don't know about the political side of it all and that kind of stuff. But my hunch is that AC Milan is a good fit for what Aidan is looking for. So I'll let you analyse a little more deeply, because I'm sure that you've been spending about the last 8 hours trying to figure out which is the perfect Italian team for him to support.
Well, I had 3 suggestions, but you'll be glad to know that AC Milan were one of them.
Oh, good.
They were traditionally the side associated with the Milanese working class. One of their nicknames was Cassiavit, which basically means screwdrivers.
Right,
and
perfect.
that was because Inter were the club of the traditionally slightly more well-off. They were also, I mean, there's sides to this, because Inter were the side that let people who weren't Italian in and basically globalized it as well. So there's plenty of kind of merit within that as well. But Milan definitely in this. Now, that has kind of changed a little bit because when Berlusconi took over, they became more widely known, more widely supported, diluted that original kind of socio-economic element, I suppose, of the fan base a little bit more. But it's worth bearing in mind that historically, that is where the club were at. The other 2 I want to suggest are a little bit different. One of them is Bologna, because Bologna is quite widely seen as a bit of a mad city. It was the heart of the Italian Communist Party for a while. It's known for its academic sort of sense, and it was one of the first ever universities. It's also one of the coolest places you'll ever go. It's absolutely wild. The food is unbelievable. It's just one of the best cities you'll visit ever. But it has, traditionally left-leaning, I would say, sort of support, although, again, with Italian politics. There's a brilliant book that everyone should read. It's by Tobias Jones. It's called Ultras, and it basically determines the way that, the Italian football scene has swayed and swerved alongside different political ultras across the course of it. Roma used to be, traditionally a left-wing fan base. It's not so much the case anymore. Bologna still retain a little bit, I think, of that. They're quite anti-establishment, maybe more than left wing. But one I want to consider is Atalanta here, who have an incredible fan base and an incredible stadium. And one of the things about Bergamo and that region is basically like it was the kind of steel or rock to Milan's silk in so many ways. There's not miles between them. They're very close together. And, the old saying used to go in Italy that if it was built in Milan, it was built by the Bergamaschi. Because the workers who made the magic happen. They were the more traditionally sort of working class fan base to I suppose that's natural with a rural area or more rural area than a more built up city. Mm-hmm. So just thought it was probably worth throwing Atalanta in here. They're also an incredibly fun side to watch. Gasperini has done miracles with them over the last few years. And whilst they're not always right at the top, I do think that there's a sense that they're punching upwards, and the football that Gasperini's sides play is truly incredible at times. So, I would just throw Atalanta. I think it's probably between Atalanta and Milan, but I did want to just throw Bologna into the mix because I find them interesting.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. It's an interesting one, like especially when you're choosing a team from abroad. I mean, one thing I would like about Milan is that you got more chance of finding some Milan fans to share the love with, probably, than you have Bologna or Atalanta over in America. And also consider one day when you do a little Euro trip, where might you want to end up? Which of those three cities? Three clubs?
You should visit all three, by the way.
Absolutely, yeah.
Absolutely
but explore.
Incredible.
I think a part of Aidan's research should be to just have a little delve into where he'd actually like to visit. I mean, I love Milan, but the other two are absolutely. I haven't been there, but I'm not saying that they would not be great either. But that would be part of my thinking, is like, if I'm supporting clubs from abroad, I do want to end up there one day. At the moment, you're going to Liverpool, you're going to Dortmund, you're going to Glasgow, and you need a fourth destination as part of this Euro trip that you're going to go on one day, Aidan.
Yeah, you fit right. Bologna fits really nicely into those four cities, actually. Yeah, it does. Actually, I think Bergamo does as well. Both incredible places to visit. I think Bologna is my favorite of those three cities. I'll be perfectly frank.
There you go.
But yeah, no, I think probably between Atalanta and Milan for you, Aidan. That's the place I'd be going. But there's some really interesting stuff that we'll send over as well. But I hope that's fun, and let us know who you decide to go with. We'll read it out on next week's show. And we've got another one. Mitch is coming on next week. We're going to help him pick. He's got a couple of clubs already. He wants to pick some other ones. So if you want to get involved, you want to get in the list, make sure you message us, and we'll do our best to help you out.
This could become a little business, a little side hustle, Jack. We should start charging for this. We'll pick people there just go across America, just like helping people. Maybe we shouldn't charge people. Maybe we should do it out of the kindness of our own heart, actually.
That's it, mate. Kindness of the heart. We'll stick with that.
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, that's
what we'll be poor and happy. And that's what
been that way for 40 years.
Exactly. May as well carry on now. And with that, I think it's probably time for us to call it a day. So all that's left for me to do is say thank you very much to Aidan for getting involved there. Thank you very much to my co-host, Mr. Dean Jones.
Cheers, mate.
I've been Jack Collins. This has been Ranks FC. Thank you so much for listening as ever. And we'll see you very shortly. Take it easy, gang. Peace. Final seconds of the game. A chance to score, and the chance has gone begging. If your business's commerce platform keeps missing the target on golden opportunities, get the MVP you deserve. Get Shopify. Shopify is the commerce platform revolutionizing millions of businesses worldwide. Whether you're a garage entrepreneur or IPO ready, Shopify is the only tool that you need to start, run, and grow your business without the struggle. Shopify puts you in control of every sales channel. So whether you're selling signed football boots from Shopify's in-person POS system, or you're vending vintage shirts on Shopify's all-in-one e-commerce platform, you are covered. And once you've reached your audience, Shopify has the internet's best converting checkout to help you turn them from browsers to buyers. What I love about Shopify is how, no matter how big you want to grow, Shopify gives you everything you need to take control and take your business to the next level. Shopify powers 10% of all e-commerce in the US. And Shopify is truly a global force, powering Allbirds, Rothy's, and Brooklinen, and millions of other entrepreneurs of every size across over 170 countries. Plus, Shopify's award-winning help is there to support your success every step of the way. This is Possibility, powered by Shopify. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/ranks, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/ranks to take your business to the next level today. That's shopify.com/ranks.